All right, it's been a little bit, but hello, good morning again. Daniel Valdez again. Pleasure and honor to talk to you. Doesn't matter where you're listening, just thanks for tuning in. Two things we want to cover real quick. We'll talk UIL real quick about their state marching band plans, and we'll talk a little bit about football and that whole thing. Because we get a lot of questions of, how come the football team gets to do their thing and the marching band doesn't, and I understand that. I'm going to try to explain it. Doesn't necessarily mean I agree with it, but we can understand. Believe it or not, you can understand stuff without necessarily agreeing with it. I know it's a wild concept, and I'm sure I'm pushing the boundaries of humanity. The time and space continuum is ripping at the seams, but whatever. We'll just keep moving forward. Why not? All right, UIL State Marching Band contest. UIL announced that they have dates and they have relative times for the tentative UIL 2020 State Marching Contest. 14th and 15th of December in the Alamo Dome of San Antonio, Texas. They've secured the site. Yay. It's in San Antonio. It's in my town. Awesome. Can't wait. Hopefully it goes through, but again, everything is up in the air. Everything's on the table for right now. We don't know what things are going to look like in November. We don't know what things are going to look like in December. We don't know what things are going to look like next week. So, it's the theme of 2020. We should all be used to. We should be used to not being used to things, if that makes any sense. Of course it doesn't, because it's early in the morning. So, here's how it goes. Monday, December 14th, Monday morning, Monday afternoon, 2A state contest. Now you're thinking, hey, 2A state contest, there was only like 17 bands that performed in 2018. Yes, but remember, UIL has the option to expand the time intervals. It's usually right on the 0 hour, quarter hour, 3/4 hour, or the bottom of the hour, top or bottom of the hour. It's usually 15-minute intervals. It's usually pretty neat. That's why I like UIL contests. However, because of social distancing practices, even though the bands are small in 2A, there's only a handful of them that are above 60. But if you remember the layout of the Alamo Dome, if you're sitting in the audience, you go audience left, the upper hand corner, that's where the band enters. But when they exit, they're on the bottom left, the bottom left corner if you're sitting in the audience. You have a band coming in that's already basically on the field with their pit equipment and props and color guard or whoever's going to be on the front sideline. And then you have the band exiting the field. They usually pass by each other briefly. I imagine that UIL is going to try to avoid that. So what you're probably looking at as far as contest flow goes, and again, this is way in the future, but this is probably how I would do it. You'd have the band come in, they do their performance, they get off the field, or they do their jollish photo in the stadium, and they get off the field, and then you don't have that other band move any stuff up into the tunnel until that first band is completely gone. Is it going to take some time? Yeah, it's going to take some time. It's going to look different. It's going to look real different. It may be a little bit shocking at first, but that's part of the COVID risk mitigation that needs to be done. So there's 2A state contest Monday morning, December 14th, morning and afternoon. Then the 4A state contest is the afternoon and evening. Again, what I would probably do, 2A contest, we do our thing, we get your trophies. Remember, it's only one round, there's no finals. It's just one shot, one opportunity, mom's spaghetti. You do your thing, 2A contest, hand out your trophies, hand out your medals, go home. Clear the stadium, disinfect with electrostatic sprayers. You can probably get that stuff done quicker than normal, quicker than you would think. It's not like they're taking wipes and going over every single seat and wiping them down with Clorox wipes or whatever Amazon lets us have. You get that done. Once that's done, we open up the doors. State marching contest for 4A comes in. They do their thing. Afternoon and evening. Socially distanced. Bigger time intervals. Get them out of the stadium. Close the stadium. Disinfect. Then we go to Tuesday, December 15th. Tentatively, the 6A marching contest for the state of Texas. Morning, afternoon, evening. That's going to be an all-day thing. Regardless of how many programs end up qualifying. We don't know if fans are going to be allowed in the stadium. We don't know how many tickets are going to be distributed. We don't know how many bands are going to be attending, because that's a lot of... we kind of know... We know who's not going because of announcements that were made by the districts or the bands themselves. The thing that's going to be interesting is to see how many programs end up pulling out of the contest or pulling out of competing because of an outbreak. Heaven forbid, an outbreak at the school. Because if there's an outbreak at a school, district or the school superintendents or whomever needs to make a decision of, hey, do we need to continue playing football? Do we need to continue doing marching band stuff? Or do we need to kind of step in and make the best possible decision with the information we have? That's a possibility. We don't know if UIL would even consider amending the rules, because there are, especially, I think I've talked about this before, Area D, there's a lot of programs, especially the ones that made finals last cycle in 2018, that are not competing this year. It's a significant amount, to the point where the area is going to be taking, I think, 2 fewer programs. So, do you leave everything as it is? Do you leave the rules as it is? Hey, this is how many bands are able to certify to from area to state? Or do we change it up a little bit and we allow a couple of more programs because numbers may be down? I don't know what UIL is thinking on that. I'm not exactly sure. Just literally throwing stuff against a wall, and we'll see what happens. I don't know what they would do. We'll see. So, 6A state contest all day, and then after that's done, we clear the stadium, and then that's it. The end of December, then everybody goes on Christmas break, or you go on your holiday break and you go do whatever, spend time with family that you don't really like. So that's UIL stuff. Tentative, temporary. We don't know yet. Things could change. We don't even know what's going to happen next week. So there's that. Again, it's at the Alamo Dome, and I believe the military marching contest is on the 12th, and they don't have a site there just yet. So that'll be something for them, for the military programs that decide to go forward and compete at their own contest this year. More on that as it develops, as they say. So let's talk very quickly about football stuff, because anytime UIL announces something and we post it on our Facebook page, TexasFans.com Facebook page, or I post it on social media, on Instagram at Danpodcast. Anytime I post stuff on there, or one of our staff members posts on Facebook page for TexasFans.com. Anytime we post anything with the UIL, anytime we post anything for college football teams that have, in their conferences that have said, hey, the bands we're not allowing the bands on halftime. We're not allowing them to do their pregame ritual stuff. The same question keeps coming up, or the same comments. Hey, how come the football team gets to do their thing and the marching band does not? How come the football team gets to breathe and sweat and tackle each other, and the marching band has to be socially distanced and they're not allowed in the field? Just for college marching band. High school stuff, the band can be on the field. Now, are there going to be protocols in place where the band, sometimes the band comes down at like 7 minutes before halftime, and they go on the track and they maybe warm up, or maybe they get in formation and they're standing right behind the football team? I don't think you're going to see very much of that. They're going to be off to the side. They're going to be away from everybody. I got fond memories of being behind the football team, waiting to go on, like right behind them, like on the sideline. Like I could have served them water if I wanted to. I don't think you're going to see much of that. They can't. It's risk mitigation, but it really comes down to 2 things: testing and money. The football teams are going to get tested, especially in college football. College football teams are getting tested at least once a week. Sometimes they're getting tested 2 or 3 times a week. The marching band, nobody's going to pay for the marching band to get tested, unfortunately. When it comes down to money, When times are tough, difficult decisions need to be made. And nobody's going to pay for the marching band to get tested. And if you're not going to be tested, part of the risk mitigation says you can't be on the field. If the football players all get tested and they're all clear to go, they're going to let them play. There's profits to be had. That's part of it. Testing and money. Another thing is, this is especially true for college marching bands. People get really upset when, the marching bands can't go to away games. Well, some of that travel money comes from the athletic department. And the athletic department is not going to have a very good fiscal turnout this year. Depending on what state you're from, you're probably not going to be allowed to go more than 50% stadium capacity. And even then, universities and colleges are already saying, hey, we're not even going to get anywhere near that. We're not going to sell single game tickets. We're just going to sell season tickets. And everybody's going to be socially distanced, and there's not going to be that many people in the stands. We're not going to be able to sell that much. We're not going to be able to sell that many concessions or beer sales, just because, it makes sense. If there's fewer people in the stands, there's fewer people buying beer or hot dogs or whatever. And all this stuff needs to become prepackaged. And prepackaged stuff costs more than non-prepackaged stuff. You'd be surprised how much it costs, the price difference between putting a giant vat of Heinz ketchup with a spout on it in the concourse. Compare that with the same amount of ketchup, but it's delivered in individual packets. The difference will, this is coming from my food service days, from running restaurants and whatnot. The difference is big enough to make people kind of squirm in their seat a little bit, especially when budgets are getting tight. Testing and money. Football teams getting tested. Marching band's not getting tested. Especially when we're running around with these aerosol machines that we call instruments. Blaring Shostakovich as loud as we can. Especially in college football, they need the show to go on. Could you imagine the headlines if they had the bands on the field, and then a bunch of marching bands kids got sick, and then all of a sudden the football players got sick and they were able to contact trace it to the marching band? Could you imagine the headlines there? They'd be throwing rocks at the marching band. Risk mitigation. Colleges and high school football teams need the show to go on. They need it to go on. So there have to be tough decisions fiscally and physically. Who's going to get access to the field? When do you get access to that field? So that's why football is allowed to do their thing and the marching band has to be socially distanced. And there's also this perception that, the seasons that the marching band season's canceled. It's not canceled. They're still UIL still doing their contests. I haven't really heard of any local contests that are going on. Maybe in East Texas, maybe West Texas. But as far as major local contests that are done as fundraisers for the marching bands, all that stuff's gone. Bands of America is doing their virtual thing. U.S. Bands is doing their virtual thing. But UIL still is trying to plan on having a season. My point is, it's not necessarily an apples to apples situation. The situations are different. The circumstances are different. How bands compete versus how football team competes. The football team is just concerned with UIL. That's it. If UIL says they go, they go. They do the protocols. They do the testing. They do whatever they need to do. And there's also that responsibility with the football team. You don't want to be the guy who goes out and, is around a bunch of people, ends up getting tested positive. Now we got a contract, and now we got to figure out who they were around, and then all of a sudden the football team gets sick, and then all of a sudden you got to cancel the season. Then all of a sudden you got to forfeit games. That guy is going to have a pretty rough time. So there's risk mitigation, there's personal responsibility for your health, there's all sorts of things going on here. But at the end of the day, these districts, these colleges, universities, they're losing money left and right. Because there's not going to be that many people in the stands, which means there's not going to be that much. You're not going to be able to sell to that many people. There's going to be limited product, whether it's concessions or T-shirts or whatever, because vendors are going to be under protocols too. So access to the field is going to be very essential to essential personnel only. Now the marching bands can, as far as we know, the marching bands can still do their halftime shows at football games for right now. Could that change? Absolutely. Could it change for the better? Absolutely. Everything's on the table here. So just because they say one thing right now doesn't necessarily mean it's going to stick 3 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now. I mean, we should all be used to this whole COVID thing being a very fluid situation in this activity. We should all be used to that. Just because it's true now doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be so in a couple of weeks or a couple of days. Nevertheless, we move forward. We support our kids no matter what their decision was. We support the programs no matter what the decision was. And we try to remain as healthy as possible. And that's it. The money stuff, unfortunately, someone like me doesn't have much of a say in how that stuff goes. Do I agree with it? I mean, not really, but I understand it. I get it. Testing and money. That's what it comes down to. So hopefully that sheds a little bit of light on what's going on, what's going to happen. Because if the football season is going to start, I mean, college football technically has already started. There was a game last night. There were 2,000 people in the stands. That was the only amount. That was the highest amount they could go for that. So that was, I think it was 10% capacity at the stadium they had it there. And it was all the way out in Alabama somewhere. We'll see how it goes. Football season's starting. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be real interesting. It's going to look different. It's going to feel different. The only thing we control is being safe and being kind to one another. I'm done here. I will talk to you next week or whenever some new stuff comes down. We'll talk about it. Make sure to like the TexasPants.com Facebook page. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at Danpodcast for the latest news and notes. We're done here. I will talk to you next week or whenever. Stay safe, be responsible, and keep moving forward. I will talk to you soon. Take care. Adios. Bye-bye.